Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with writer, author, and email marketer Stephanie Cansian. She is the author of the book Change the World in $10 or Less. She shares her life on Instagram to inspire others to go out and do the impossible every day. She always wanted to be a writer, but never expected to be one. It was an impossible dream that she let sit and simmer on the back burner for most of her life. She tried and failed for years to make a career in sales and marketing, and while she was good, earning her MBA from Rutgers in marketing management wasn't her calling. We cover some good ground here. Enjoy.
Great to meet you. I want to begin our conversation before we get into your life as a writer and everything that's kind of led up to who you are now with
Sure.
How did you survive the last 3.5 years? How did you get through the pandemic and how did it change you?
It's a story actually. So at the time my husband and I, we were living in New Jersey in an apartment. We were looking for a house. And we had put in an offer on our house back in January. We're going through the whole process. This is January 2020. So at the time I was working in Amazon, and we had taken this big family vacation from March. We had this big family vacation to Disney World scheduled from March 8th to the 15th. And so I got off work. We all went to Disney World. And at this time, there was the rumblings of what's going on with this thing. And so Disney World, we got the call while we were in Disney World that we were going to close on the house on the Monday that we got back. So my husband and I packed up Friday night. We left Florida Saturday, drove back to New Jersey, packed up the rest of our stuff on Sunday, and Monday the 17th, we closed on our house. That was the day lockdown started.
Wow.
So Amazon, where I work, puts out this thing. If you feel like you may have been, exposed to this virus, well, please self-quarantine. I wrote them back. I was just in Disney World for a week, and they said stay home. So I had 2 weeks to set up this brand new house that we had just closed on. And that was how the pandemic started. So I was an essential worker. I was working for Amazon at the time. I wound up getting a different job during the pandemic that was literally across the street from where I was now living. So worked there, and I was in this office job, and it was incredibly stressful. I was given all of this responsibility that I had familiarity with, but it was very much a trial by fire, you learn as you go. And so between doing this new job and the pandemic and just the uncertainty of everything, 2020 was incredibly stressful. I was very lucky. Neither my husband nor I were furloughed. We never lost our jobs or anything. We were incredibly lucky in that respect, but it was stressful in other ways. And so in 2021, I kind of hit my breaking point. I was just I was overworked. I was anxious, overweight, because stress makes you eat, and our eating had kind of gotten out of control. And I said, I need to do something. I need to be proud of myself again, because I wasn't getting that from my job. I wasn't getting it from anything else. So that's when I started doing burpees. And it was the silliest thing. My husband encouraged me to do burpees because it was something I could do at home. I didn't have to go to a gym. I didn't have to go outside. And he asked me, what do you want to accomplish? And I had read David Goggins' book, and I said, you know what? I want to be able to do 100 burpees like David Goggins. And he's like, well, how many can you do? And I think at the time I could do 5, and I was done. I was wiped out. I was dead on the floor. So he said, okay, there's your goal. You have to do 100 burpees by the end of the year. And sure enough, I made it. It took me about a year, but I got to 100 burpees. And that's where I ended 2021. And then in 2022, I started doing 100 burpees a day. And it sounds silly, but just doing that made me believe that I could do harder things. I got involved with a mindset coach and a copywriting coach, and I started doing writing as a side hustle because I really didn't want to be in my office job anymore, and just started evolving from that point. So now here we are in 2023, and I did nearly a year of 100 burpees a day, which I filmed on my Instagram, and I started building my writing portfolio more, and now I am a full-time writer, copywriter, and sales consultant. And if people ask me really nicely, I help them learn to do burpees and get their eating under control.
Very nice. Well, I was going to ask you, how you would explain what you do for a living to a bunch of third graders, but I think you did a good job. So my follow-up to that in that same vein is, when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I had two dreams. I wanted to be a writer because I liked writing. I liked writing since I can remember. Like, I remember being in second grade on the one classroom computer, like, typing out a story, and I loved it. But I come from a family of medical professionals, so I had this expectation that I was going to be a doctor. So if you had asked me in the third grade what I was going to be, I would have said a doctor, and then I probably would have said a doctor who writes.
So yeah, no, that makes sense. So you're doing what you wanted to do. So I'm curious, where were you born and raised, and what were some of these inspirations to write? What were maybe like an early book or things that kind of were seeds that were put into you to become who you are today?
Raised in New Jersey, lived in New Jersey the majority of my life, and inspiration, I always just liked it. Like, I loved reading stories. I've always liked stories, and writing them just kind of came very naturally. Like I would journal when I have journals from when I was, before I was age 10, in children's handwriting. I have a very clear memory of being in second grade writing on a computer. So that just was something that's always been with me. I later on, I had influences from writers. Like, when I was a child, I would probably have said like Shel Silverstein, Dr. Seuss, like those kinds of writers. I remember at one point, my parents had gotten me a set of like the Great Illustrated Classics, like the abridged classics for children, and I had set a secret goal for myself that I wanted to read all of them. And I never accomplished that, but I got a good way. But I've always loved stories. And the ability to find story anywhere. Everything has a story. And the way you tell that story, you can make it as personal or as objective as you need that story to be. And I've always just found that really, really cool. One of the first forays into writing for money that I did was actually during the 2008 recession. I started a little side business selling people stuff on eBay. And I would come up with little stories and descriptions of their stuff, and they would sell. And made a little bit of money that way. But that was my first like foray, not just into like marketing, storytelling, branding, all of that, but it was also seeing stuff that I loved doing in action, making an impact in the world, and not just the financial one, but the people who got these objects really, truly wanted them. Like, it completed some part of their life or something that they were doing. And that was the cooler part for me, is that I was the catalyst between this person finding something and this person, like, letting go of something they no longer needed.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
My grandmother is definitely a hero of mine. My father as well. Like I said, I come from a family of like medical professionals, so all of them were very much in the service of life. So, which I think when you make your purpose making other people's lives better, I don't think there's anything higher you could possibly be doing. So those two have definitely been heroes for me.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet, whether it's a writer or otherwise, and spend some time with them, maybe pick their brain a little bit, who would that be?
Oh, boy. I would definitely want to get into a discussion with Daniel Handler, who's a writer, Neil Gaiman, who's also a writer, Edgar Carrot, who's another writer. Because even though I'm a writer, I have a pretty good routine down for the writing I do for my clients. Writing for myself, continues to be it almost feels selfish. And these people have written such great stuff, and some of it's completely postmodern, wacky stuff, but they took the time, they wrote it, and it worked. And I would just want to know, how did they get over that? Or is it just you have to defeat it every day? Which I'm getting to the point, I think that's the answer, is you just have to defeat your own imposter syndrome or your own sense of guilt every single day to just get the words down.
So what is that motivation for you every day? To get up, to be a writer, to go after your dream? What's the motivation for you?
Knowing that there is nothing else I'd rather be doing. I've done the corporate life. I've done the office life. I've done the barista life. I've done so many lives, careers, jobs, and I keep coming back to this. So knowing that this is it for me, that there is nothing else I would rather be doing, that's what gets, and the work that I'm doing is making a positive difference for my clients and the people who read what I write. That's enough. That's enough to get me up and get me going.
So what's your best success story? What's the one that puts a smile on your face?
The burpees continue to be one of my best success stories because it was something I had to work really hard for, and I learned a lot about myself in the process. The other one is a success story still in the works. So I can clearly see the ending, but it's still happening. So I don't want to quite call it a success story yet, but one of my clients is a dance studio that that's needed a little help, and I can see that it's very slowly, with the work I'm putting in, turning around. So I wouldn't call it a success story yet, but simply the process of going through and seeing these little goals that we're setting and hitting every time over the past couple of months has been it's been exciting because I can clearly see the ending. It's just a matter of getting there.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the senior in high school version of you. You could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life so far. What advice would you dispense on that young version of you?
Don't be afraid to say no for yourself. So I was always the person who would champion others. I had friends who I would champion, and I'd be their biggest fan. But I was never my own biggest fan. I always kind of, did for others before myself. I was a classic people pleaser, and it's still something that I'm working through. And that gave me, I think, an illusion of confidence that I don't think I actually had till later, because I had no problems championing for other people. I had a very difficult time championing for myself. So learning to set boundaries earlier would be the only piece of advice that I give me, because at the time I knew what I wanted to do with every confidence in the world. And I would not want to tell myself back then that I was wrong, because part of the learning process is realizing where you went wrong, how, and then learning from it. And there was a lot of things I did as a senior in high school that I did right, and a couple of things I got wrong, but I learned from. So I wouldn't want to mess with that.
So of all of the things that you've done so far in life, what are you the proudest of?
Starting my own business finally and going in on it full time. It's something that I've secretly always wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to be a writer and work for myself and work from wherever I wanted to and not have to go into an office every day. But for the majority of my life, I was told that that wasn't reality. Even up until like 2015, I was working for a tech company, and they said, and I said, I wanted to be able to work from corporate but work from home, and they said, that's impossible. You have to go into the office and have FaceTime. And 2020 rolls around, and we learned that that's not actually completely accurate. That it is entirely possible to run a business completely remote and still be successful. So it's one of those things I've always wanted. I had a vision for it, and I was never brave enough to make it happen. And now I have.
So you seem like you're an adventurous sort. So I'm going to just pose this to you. If a time machine pulls up in front of your house after we get off the phone, and you can go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where are you going to go? What do you want to see?
One event in human history with my own eyes?
Yes.
It has to be history. It can't be future?
No, let's open it up. That's interesting.
I would want to see the day that we first colonized Mars.
I love it. So
there's a very specific reason for that. Because we've been to the moon. People are like, okay, we've been to the moon. Mars is the next thing. And right now there's a whole lot of science and a whole lot of research going into what would it take for us to get to Mars. And it's in that stage where it's possible within the realms of science fiction, but it's on that edge of becoming fact. So I want to see what happens, the point at which we colonize Mars, we land on Mars, and see what we had to do as a society to get to that point. Because
I like
in order for us to get to the moon, we actually had to change like the whole education system and the way children were learning in order for us to get to the moon. So what do we have to do to get to Mars? Because I have a feeling it's not just a matter of knowledge, it's a way that society treats its people that has an effect on how far out we can reach. And that's what interests me.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately are in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am a pretty chill person. I think I'm a pretty chill person. And I don't mean that by unambitious. I definitely have some ambition, but it's not an ambition where it's like it's all I think about. Because I do care about the world around me. I do care about treating people well. I care about my family. There's a lot of things I do care about, but I choose what I care about very carefully. So if something comes up and people get caught up in the drama, I tend to not get caught up in drama. I kind of see things for what's going on, how does it relate, can I help? If I can, I will. If I can't, then I'm going to continue to do what I do best. Because all I can control in this life is my attitude and my actions to what's going on around me. I can't control anything else.
I like it. I agree. So, Stephanie, if anyone wants to reach out, get involved with your writing, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
Instagram's the best place. It's just my name, SL Cansian, and I'm most active on there. And that's also where I do the majority of work for my clients, as well as email and newsletters. So if you're not an Instagram or social media person, straight up email is also the best way to reach me.
I love it. Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. Thank you for your story and your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. This was a fun conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.